Hey guys, this is Jack, and today we're going to be talking about Sirat, which is the new Oliver Lash film. We recently saw this at the Toronto Film Festival just a few weeks ago, and yeah, we're just gonna kind of like go not super deep into it because we don't want to like spoil the whole thing, but I kind of want to like talk about it with one of my best friends, Nathaniel. And yeah, let's just like dive into it. Welcome to my channel. It's been a little bit, but it's just kind of like a weird situation because I didn't know we were going to like do this like just a few weeks ago. But you know what, like I'm just like really happy that you're here, man. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me on. It was about time because I know we did the War of the Worlds review, which was insane, but glad to be here talking about Sirat with you.
Yeah, so let's kind of like start with like the plot of the film, and then eventually we'll kind of like go into like our like positives and negatives of the film. So like the plot basically is you have a bunch of these people who are going into like a rave in the Moroccan desert, and you have this father and son who is trying to find one of their relatives in the middle of this desert rave party. And then eventually the film kind of derails into this thriller, kind of like almost like a weird sci-fi apocalyptic thriller where basically the father and son go away from like the road of the rave party to another rave with a bunch of misfits, and eventually the film turns into kind of like this crazy war film, I should say. And that's where the film kind of like shines, in my opinion, and I guess also as well, Nathaniel, because I think this is one of these films where it really like grabbed me from like the beginning, as far as setting up the whole landscape of like the entire narrative, because right from the beginning you have like this pulsating like EDM score, and you have a bunch of like performers and actors just like dancing in the middle of the desert while everything is being set up for like the rave. And eventually the film kind of like washes into like the more like deeper, darker like thematics, and it's one of those things where it just like holds you like close, and then eventually it kind of like throws you off a cliff. And well, it's like a really like crazy kind of like way to like think and kind of like describe it, but I felt it, and I honestly think you might have felt that as well, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think this is like the most visceral movie I've seen this year. It's very sensory right from the opening, which is amazing. I love the rave stuff at the beginning. It's such a great way to set you into this world where in the setting where this movie is taking place, and then it's like slowly but surely. I kind of compare it to a cross between Sorcerer or Wages of Fear and Mad Max Fury Road, because it's just really, really intense. You're in this like really, this very isolated desert setting, and you're just seeing stuff like happen nonstop, and it's just like it's really difficult to watch at some points, and really it has some of the most shocking moments of the year, and I love that the movie and Laksh doesn't hold back in showing that, because I think that's probably the most effective part of the whole movie, if I had to say.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think it's also just like the performances in this film, because right off the bat I think Sergi Lopez, like his performance like really kind of like got to me right from the jump, because his performance starts out like very tender. He's trying to kind of find his daughter with his son, and they're kind of like going around like the whole like party block trying to like find information. And then eventually you get one or two scenes where like they're together, like the father and son, intimately, and they're like sharing like a discussion about the whole environment and like how they're going to continue to find the search for their relative. But then eventually, once we kind of like leave the grounds and go with like these group of misfits, then the film kind of like evolves into kind of like this weird spiritual experience where you're trying to like find God, but God's not there, and he's kind of like throwing a lot of crazy obstacles at you to test your perseverance as far as trying to find your goal. I think that's like what I personally like found when I was like watching the film, is just like the spirituality of the whole narrative. And where it ends, I don't want to spoil it, but it does end in kind of like a way where it leaves you with kind of like this dread, but like also at the same time there's kind of like this weird like spiritual backing behind your psyche. So I just like really liked all the performances. I think Sergi Lopez, when I was like at the festival, I was just like, man, this is like top 5 like best like male performances of the year, because of just the way like he conveys a lot of like the emotions of like pain and like suffering while he's trying to like figure out what to do next, as far as like trying to like follow the group of misfits across like the Moroccan desert. Like I really felt a lot of like that pain. And then eventually there's one scene where something bad happens, like something really terrible happens, and it kind of like shifts the entire like narrative into like this whole thing where it's just like, oh shit, this is like serious. And then after that happens, you feel more for like Sergi Lopez's like character, in my opinion. But I would probably think you would say the same thing, right?
Well, I wouldn't say is like one of my favorite performances of the year, but he is great. I think, some of the emotional levels that he reaches are really, really difficult and really powerful to watch. And I think some of the supporting performances too are really, really great. Especially a few near the end. I think you might have an idea who I'm referring to, but my thing is, because I do think, like you said, it is very spiritual, and I think that was what Locke was trying to get at more than anything, is the spirituality of, music, specifically in rave culture, and how it's kind of like this freedom. But I feel like, the whole story is set up, he's trying to find his daughter, he's got his son with him, that sort of thing. And I feel like the movie in some scenes effectively conveys character and kind of what happened, but I feel like it's, there's a lot of substance to be found, because I can tell just from the way he was talking about in the Q&A, he's got a lot on his mind with this movie. But I feel like it only scratches the surface, because I feel, from in regards to like the overall experience, yes, I mean, it was definitely very unforgettable in a lot of ways, but I feel like the characters could have had a lot more to them. I would have wanted a little bit more history behind what was going on, maybe just have it be a little bit more character driven, and I think there is substance there. But I feel like the film only scratches the surface because, of course, the story is set up to be, him and his son trying to find his daughter, and, you get to learn a little bit along the way with these characters, but I really don't think enough to, justify it being an incredibly gripping experience outside of the viscerality of it. Because at a certain point, I feel like it does feel a little bit shock value more than anything. And it works in that regard. Like there's some sequences like I'm still thinking about as clear as day, especially the last 30 minutes or so are really, really riveting to watch. But I feel like there's something a little bit lacking for me to really connect with the narrative as much as I know, because you were a little bit higher on this movie than I was, and we saw it together. And yeah, I just feel like it's a big thrill ride with some glimpses into the spirituality of the music and rave culture more than anything else. But I would have, and of course there's a political angle to it as well that's kind of like touched upon. Maybe we could have known a little bit more about that as well. So I guess I was just wanting more from like a screenplay standpoint, but the experience itself was really, really incredible, I would have to say.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the common like criticisms that I've been like following, is just mostly like the film being kind of like a little bit like exploitative of like the really like intense moments in the film. And yeah, I can definitely like see that, because it is kind of just sort of like one note once it gets to that point. But like even then, like for me personally, like I was just like riveted and like gripped from like the jump. So like once those things like started to happen, I was just like, yeah, I know where it's kind of going to go with some of like the obstacles they're going to like go into. But like even then, I was just like, all right, but I'm still like locked in, because I want to see how like this plays out. This film kind of like reminded me of, I think last year or like the year before, Io Capitano, which was another
Oh yeah, yeah.
film where it was about like a mission from one of the main characters, and he was trying to like go to like another place, and all these obstacles were like throwing like a lot of like crazy stuff like Adam. But yeah, like this kind of felt like Capitano with like the kind of like backdrop of just like foreign lands and like obstacles that you have to kind of like,
The desert.
yeah, right. But with that film, it felt more richer because you have like other characters that were coming like in and out of like the storyline, trying to ruin the experience of like the main character. But I think here, like, I can totally understand why people aren't like vibing with the second half of the film, as it like turns into like a exploitation film, almost kind of grindhouse a little bit, but like it's not
Hmm.
like like schlocky or
No,
like
no.
low brow, but it's a little bit pulpy where it does like get to that like really violent parts. But yeah, man, just for me personally, like I was just like gripped the whole time through, and I think it's probably because like I'm like more sensory like heavy with a lot of films that are more like abstract but also have like this like notion of using like sound and like visuals, like vibrant visuals. And I think this is like one of the most vibrant films that you'll see this year. The audio mix and like the whole score or soundtrack is just peak in my opinion.
Oh yeah. The score and sound design are exceptional. I think the sound design is even Oscar worthy, at least, for a nomination.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree. And again, going back to like Sergi Lopez, like again, I really liked his performance in this. I would personally put him in like my personal top five, like at number five, just to start. But yeah, like he really like gripped me. And there's again like that one scene with some drugs and
Hmm.
some like music before something really bad happens. And I thought that scene like really like emotionally like gripped me and like put me into like a space of like spirituality. So that alone like was probably like the one of the top like scenes of this year in my opinion. But yeah, other than that, like I just loved this movie, and I did have a chance to watch it again just last week with my dad. I didn't talk to my dad about it yet, but seeing it again like in another space was kind of like off-putting. But I feel like this film is like a need to be seen type of film in theaters because of the way the audio is like mixed, and like how like the cinematography like moves across between like the party scenes and then just like the whole landscape of like the desert. But yeah, do you want to like give the ratings like real quick?
Yeah, well, I just want to wrap up a few more thoughts I had because I agree. I was really gripped from the beginning. I was loving the first like 30 minutes of the movie before it kind of veered off. But I will say I also think it feels like it goes on a little too long for my liking. The pace definitely slows down and you feel it. At least I did. But yeah, I mean, it still was like a very memorable experience. One of the first movies we saw at TIFF, I think it was like my fourth movie that I had seen. Well, actually, no, it was my fifth movie I had seen. Sorry, but still, I think it's worth seeing, like you said, for the sound. See it in Dolby Atmos if you can.
Yeah.
Best sound system possible. But yeah, for my score on my scale, I'd give it like a low 8 out of 10. So here would probably be like a low 4 out of 5. But I mean, still, I really enjoyed the movie, so I definitely think that it's one you got to check out. Who knows if it's going to get an international feature nomination? I feel like that's a little unlikely considering the competition we now have this year. But still, as soon as it comes to theaters, go check it out and see it for yourself. You might end up really loving it, like my buddy Jack here.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with like the whole idea of just like seeing it in theaters. For me personally, like I would give it a 4.5 out of 5, and it's just gonna like stay there because I think the only problem that I do have with the film is just like there's a kind of like a slow down in the middle of the film where you're kind of just like, okay,
Yeah.
where's this going? But then something bad happens, and then the whole narrative just shifts, and I was just like, all right, I'm totally in for this, and I want to see how this ends. But yeah, like I give this a 4.5 out of 5. I'm not completely sure what the rating is for like numbers, like 8 on a 10 scale. but I'd probably put it like at like a 9 out of 10. And it's just probably because like I was really like locked in seeing it, and we saw it like in the front row of
Yeah, we're pretty
Scotiabank.
close to it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was just like the sound was just like blaring like right in front of us, and like the screen was just like tall, and we were just like looking up, and we were just like, yeah, like that was a shit. One of the most like bleakest films that you'll see this year. It's
I was
the
just saying a
most
lot.
bad movie of the year, and I got to talk to like one of our friends from the Oscar experts fully about this, because he says it's like one of his favorite movies of the year, and I'm just like, man,
Yeah, and then
this is bleak. What do you? Why?
yeah.
Why?
Yeah. And then his brother's like, I don't know. He's like, I don't
Yeah, I
know why
don't
he's
know.
saying that. I was like, what movie did he see? But I respect it. I respect it.
Respect. Yeah, but yeah, that's basically it. Thank you so much for like coming here and like actually talking about this film for a little bit. Where can you find yourself?
Well, I can find myself in many places, but if you want to find me on the internet, you can find me at Nathaniel_Ahart on Instagram, Twitter, because fuck X. You could also find me on YouTube at Nathaniel Ahart, which I'm sure will be linked in this description here. And yeah, I figured maybe this would be a better discussion coming on here and talking about as opposed to my channel. So thank you for asking me to come on, and yeah, hopefully we'll be on the channel again sometime soon.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for coming here. You're already on my channel, so you can find me here. I'm gonna continue doing a lot of TIFF reviews. Actually, I think I'm probably gonna like do like one more review, and I think it's probably gonna be like It Was Just an Accident, and then after that, I'm just gonna do like a little update video of like my Oscar predictions and just the general vibe. And I also have the Montclair Film Festival coming up, so keep an eye out on that. And yeah, just like, share, favorite this video, do whatever you can to spread the word, because this is one of those movies that I think should be seen in theaters. But yeah, thank you guys so much. Peace.